The night had been quiet, too quiet. The hum of the coolers was the only heartbeat inside the little convenience store where Mara Lewis worked the late shift. To the outside world, it was just another fading evening, the kind where streetlights flicker awake and the world exhales in peace. But peace has a strange way of cracking without warning. For Mara, that crack came with a chime, the door swung open, and three strangers stepped in. They didn't come for gas, coffee, or gum. They came carrying the kind of darkness that chills the air around it. Their laughter didn't sound human, it sounded hungry. She was alone. 10 minutes past closing, and in that moment, her heartbeat was the only sound louder than the coolers. What happened next was something she would never forget. Because sometimes, the world sends help from the unlikeliest places, from people the world often misjudges. People who walk in leather, wear tattoos like scars, and understand what it means to protect someone without expecting anything in return. That night, kindness didn't come with angel wings. It came with roaring engines, steel boots, and a quiet kind of courage. This is the story of Mara Lewis, and the three men who thought she was prey, until three others showed them what real strength looks like. If you believe kindness still lives in unexpected hearts, stay with us till the end. Because this story will change how you see strangers forever. The night had stretched thin, its silence fragile as glass. Inside the small roadside convenience store, fluorescent lights hummed like tired bees. The air smelled faintly of coffee, cleaning spray, and something bittersweet, exhaustion. Mara Lewis wiped the counter one last time, her hands moving on autopilot after a 12-hour shift. Outside, the last breath of sunlight bled into dusk. The streets were empty except for the occasional car slicing through the quiet. The store clock blinked 10:10 p.m. 10 minutes past closing. Mara sighed in relief. Finally, she thought, finally home. Her mother would be waiting with the porch light on, as always, but fate doesn't ask permission. Just as she reached for the register key, the chime above the door cut through the stillness. Three men stepped inside. They didn't belong to the softness of this hour. The tall one led, his boots thudding against the tiled floor, a smirk etched on his stubbled face. The other two trailed behind, whispering, laughing under their breath. Mara straightened, forcing a polite smile. "Sorry, we're closed for the night," she said, her voice softer than she intended. The tall man's grin widened. "That so?" He leaned an elbow on the counter, his eyes glinting beneath the flickering light. "Then I guess we'll just help ourselves." Mara's stomach twisted. Something cold crept into her spine, an instinct older than words. She stepped back. The man's name tag caught the light, Kyle. His jacket reeked of alcohol and cigarette smoke. "We're not here to buy," he added with a low chuckle. The words fell like a blade. The second man, a bulky figure in a red flannel, moved to the side aisle, casually blocking her only exit. The third pretended to study a rack of candy bars, whistling out of tune. The sound was almost mocking. Mara's heart pounded. She could feel the register key digging into her palm. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her mind. "You never know who walks into your life, Mara. Some to hurt you, some to save you." "Please," she said quietly, "we're closed." Kyle leaned in, close enough for her to smell the stale beer on his breath. "You nervous, sweetheart?" When she didn't respond, he grabbed her shirt by the collar and yanked her forward. The fabric tore with a sharp rip. Laughter erupted behind him, cruel, ugly, echoing against the aisles. Mara gasped, twisting to break free, but his grip was like iron. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Fear burned through her chest, locking her voice. Then, from somewhere deep in the store, a sound. A soft thud. Kyle's head jerked up. What the hell was that? Another step. Then another. Slow. Heavy. From between the aisles, three figures emerged, their shadows stretching long before them. The men froze. The leader stepped into the light, a tall, broad man in his late 40s. His beard was thick, streaked with gray, and tattoos climbed his arms like stories carved in ink. The black leather vest he wore bore a symbol Mara instantly recognized, Hell's Angels. Her breath caught. Behind him walked two others, one bald with a heavy chain bracelet and a knowing smirk, the other younger, with shoulder-length hair and mirrored sunglasses resting atop his head. They moved with quiet certainty, not haste. The air changed. Kyle's laughter died. His hand still gripped her torn shirt, but his bravado faltered. The leader's voice broke the silence, low and even, "You might want to let go of that." For a second, nobody moved. Kyle sneered, forcing a shaky chuckle. "What's it to you, old man?" The biker didn't answer. He stepped forward once, just once, but it was enough to shift the air, enough to make the coolers hum louder. Kyle's fingers twitched. He released her shirt. "That's better," the biker murmured. The bald man leaned casually on a shelf, his eyes scanning the other two intruders. The younger one cracked his knuckles, his expression unreadable behind the glint of his shades. "You boys had your fun," the leader said quietly. "Now it's time to leave." For a heartbeat, Kyle considered obeying. Then his pride snapped like a dry twig. "You think you can tell me what to do?" he spat. "You think that vest scares me?" The biker's gaze didn't flicker. "No. But consequences should." Kyle lunged. What followed wasn't a fight, it was a lesson. The leader sidestepped, caught Kyle's wrist mid-air, twisted, and in one fluid motion sent him sprawling across the floor. His groan echoed through the aisles. The man in the red flannel charged next, shouting, but the bald biker intercepted him, slamming him gently, yet firmly, against the counter. The shelf rattled but didn't break. The third thug, realizing the tide had turned, raised his hands and backed away. His voice trembled. We're leaving." The bell above the door jingled as he bolted into the night. The others stumbled after him, tripping over each other in their haste. Silence returned. For a moment, all Mara could hear was the blood pounding in her ears. She looked at the men standing before her, their expressions calm, unbothered, almost gentle. The leader turned to her, his tone softening. "You okay, miss?" Her throat tightened. She nodded, clutching her torn shirt. "Thank you." He raised a hand slightly, stopping her. "No need." The younger biker fetched a tissue box from the counter and slid it toward her. The smallest gesture, but it undid her. Tears spilled, quiet and trembling. "You might want to keep the lights on for a while," the leader said, turning toward the door. "You're never as alone as you think." With that, they walked out, boots echoing against tile, reflections flickering in the glass. Mara followed to the window. The night beyond no longer felt suffocating. 3 motorcycles stood waiting under the streetlight, chrome glinting against the asphalt. Engines roared to life, a deep, thunderous growl that rolled through the night like a heartbeat. She watched as they rode away, their tail lights vanishing into the horizon. For a long while, she just stood there. Then, with shaking hands, she locked the door, turned the sign to closed, and sank behind the counter. Tears came again, but this time, they were warm. Healing, because for the first time in a long while, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt protected. She smiled faintly, whispering to no one in particular, "Guess angels come in leather too." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that courage, kindness, and humanity still walk among us, take a second to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Because sometimes, the smallest act of protection becomes the loudest echo of hope. And remember, heroes don't always wear badges, sometimes, they ride Harleys. Blackheart.